You're listening to the Kourting Happiness podcast. This is a place where self-care becomes part of your day. A space where you learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare of suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness. And my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The Kourting and Kourting Happiness is about a true courtship, I like to say, commitment with happiness. The K in Kourting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 27. You are in for a treat. We're focused on meaningful work with a special guest, Professor Tira Murray, an individual searching or really may ask the question, why am I here? And we're going to get some of those answers today by really being inspired by all things Professor Tira Murray. Well, the Kourting Happiness podcast is also going to do this. We're going to begin a series called Meaningful Work Fuels Me. Our work expresses our meaning and expression in terms of our purpose. And even in my own research, I found that journalists and media entrepreneurs see purpose in their work. Today, we're going to focus on a media professional who is doing just that. Professor Tira Murray, as you know, but at least can tell by this title, that she is a media professional and turned academic. She's truly a phenomenal woman. And I love to say this, that she is part of my self-care squad. Of course, listening to the Kourting Happiness community, you know the value of cultivating a self-care squad. She works at North Carolina A&T State University, where she teaches multimedia production and professional development. Professor Murray is a two-time TEDx speaker. She's also the creator of The Female Academic, a platform that is dedicated to sharing resources and support for people of color working in higher education. We're so happy that she is here, if you can hear the sound in my voice. So let's talk. Professor Murray, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am more than excited to be on here.
I am super excited, as you can tell, as you started talking. I go, super excited that you're here. Guys, she's an amazing human being, just a phenomenal person. And so I'm looking forward to this interview with her today. So let's start by talking about the Female Academic. Now, it's a group, as I mentioned earlier in the intro, that focuses on women of color in academia. Tell us why it was important for you to create this community.
So I created this community really based on myself. I started teaching at the collegiate level pretty young. To give some background, I basically graduated from my master's program and went right into it. The door happened to be open for me, and so I took it. And so I noticed that other than being called a student, that there weren't many people that looked like me. There weren't many young people, and even when I went to conferences, I was often the only person of color in the room. I will never forget my first conference. I was literally the only person of color in the room. And my first conference, thankfully, my former master's advisor was there. And so were a few of my other professors. So I felt comfortable being there. But like I said, the only person of color. And granted, this was a local conference. So being where we are, um, at North Carolina A&T, we're surrounded by HBCUs. And North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, has the most HBCUs. And so this conference, it was the first time that it was in the United States. So it was a little bizarre to me why there weren't other people of color there. It really struck a chord with me. That's really when I first said there's something that has to be done about this. There's no way, because there were other HBCUs that did get invites to come and they didn't. Um, the next thing that prompted me was more so that I received, I don't want to say backlash for being so young and being in the classroom, but I was kind of taunted in a way. Being called a spring chicken, or, oh, you don't know any better just yet, or you'll find your way, by people who don't necessarily have the best track record, just being totally transparent, who don't have the best track record with their evaluations. And so this really made me upset. People telling me that I was not good enough in what I'm doing because I'm just young, you know? And another thing too, full disclosure, I was asked for my driver's license probably for the first 2 years of me working there, just so people could prove how old I really was. They were that curious. People who were trying to Google me on the internet, which realistically, if you Google me, I come up. My age, well, now that there's more about me on there, does come up. Um, so it was really uncomfortable. And I said, there's got to be more ways for people who are young, and not just young, but of color, to be accepted in this space to where we don't have to feel uncomfortable. And I remember watching a TED Talk by Erica Jane, who is one of the cast members on The Real Housewives um, of Beverly Hills. And her TED Talk was about kind of that transformation of who you are to people, and also, the persona that you put on, and then who you are in real life. And I connected so much with that because I felt like I had to put on so much of this front, like, okay, I dressed differently. If you could see a before and after picture of what I looked like before when I first started teaching to what I look like now, totally different. You can see I look more youthful, and that's because I accepted more of my age. And just like Erica Jane, it's more about, she needed people to accept who she was in the forefront and who she was behind. And it kind of hit me right after that. I said, there's a community of us that are probably out there that, we're kind of like little Erica Janes. We're just waiting to feel accepted. And so I started Googling, you know, and researching, are there communities for people of color? Are there Instagram communities? Are there Facebook communities? Not just for people of color, but for young instructors in academia. Is there anything? And there is not. There literally is no step-by-step guide to even get you into academia. There's plenty of blogs, plenty of opinion pieces on like self-reflections, but there's no true guide. And I said, this needs to be made. Um, so we're talking about meaningfulness, right? I've gone through a name switch. I first was professing forward because I wanted it to be for people who were just interested in getting into higher ed, because I wanted to build that community. But I soon said, my main mission was to get women of color in academia and for them to be seen, for their stories to be heard, for them to feel like there is a community out there for them. And that's what prompted me to make the switch and to become more involved with the female academic.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So you went through a name change, right? In terms of, I guess, really rebranding
Mhm.
yourself, right? So tell us about what your vision is as it relates to the female academic. So you've gone through now this transition. So what is your overall vision for your group?
So my vision for the female academic, I used to just say, if I can get one like, I'm doing good. That's all that really mattered to me. If I can get one like, I'm doing good. I know there's so many inspirational quotes that say, just keep posting. It'll happen. It'll happen. My real vision for this was that I wanted to build a community. I wanted it to be inclusive. I wanted to have people tell their stories of how they got to where they are and what took them there. Not for people to say, oh, I got my dream job, I went to my dream school, and it's all working out, which in reality, there's probably 1 out of 10 people that really happens to. That doesn't happen for all of us, especially for women of color in academia. That does not happen for all of us. There's no way, because there has not been a way made for us. And so my vision was for the female academic just to be inclusive, but to slowly grow and become bigger and stronger. And that's exactly what's happening. Realistically, my pinch me moment, I won't totally name drop, but my pinch me moment happened twice last week. Two people who, when I was first professing forward and I was looking at different profiles, I saw their profiles and I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to work with them. That would be amazing if I got to do something with them. And pinch me was when they both followed me on the same day.
Wow.
Right. I was like, oh, this is legit. Like, I knew this was legit before. But when they followed me, I said, oh, you're doing something. Something's happening. And one of them reached out to me immediately. She liked 2 pictures. She reached out to me and then she followed me. And she wants to be featured.
Wow, that's fantastic. So
Right. I jaw was not just like hanging, it was on the floor. So it's like this tiny vision that I had, right, from the name switch and then envisioning it getting bigger. But then, like I said, if you keep posting, the people will come. And it's true. The people do come. The first thing she put in there was she saw one of the posts that that someone in her following shared. And then she saw another one and she said something told her to reach out to me and to follow me. I was like, wow. People are watching.
yeah.
People are watching. People watch you.
Yeah. It's really phenomenal to see that. And I love that in terms of, growing your community. Here within our audience, we've been seeing it grow. And
Mhm.
so what I love is that we are, a wonderful global community here within Courting Happiness. We have now listeners in Japan and Finland. We're growing a lot in Australia and India, and so it's great to be able to see that growth. And I love what you shared in regards to the fact of, when you are, when you're thinking about these incredible people that you're like, yes, that you've always wanted to connect with, and seeing them now beginning, to connect with you. I felt that way when I was like, did this person just like all of my posts or majority of my posts back then? And then I'm like, and then they just direct message me. And so it's great. It's
Yeah.
great. And it's great to be able to starting to see that level of connection, right? And it's also great to be able to see your community grow. So I want to ask you this,
Mhm.
because true meaningfulness, from work comes from being true to oneself,
Mhm.
right? Being true to oneself. So, how do you feel a sense of that with your work?
I look at the female academic page as something that I live by. Um, Committing to posting every day is me committing to progress. And so every post shares a little bit of me, whether it's the all white posts with I'm sure you can recognize Times New Roman font. These are things that I try to tell myself. I shared a post on inauguration day. And it was literally something I had said to myself. I said, look, if Dr. Jill Biden is the first lady and we've got our vice president who is an HBCU alumna in the White House. Like, there's nothing that I can't do. There's no limit, there's no barrier. And that's just from me. I was saying that when the Biden Harris administration was elected. And I just said, let me make it into a post. That literally went viral. I was not expecting that to happen. And I said, wow, I witnessed my authenticity go viral. That's something that I just said that went viral. Like, wow, it just, it happened. I didn't make it, just to say, oh, I need a really good post. I need traction. Those were my words. I had been saying that right after it happened. And I think it's amazing when you can see your words, nothing that you've heard on the street or that you've read, that yourself, when you see yourself being accepted by so many people, it's kind of like it's not even a pinch me moment. It's like, wow, straight up gratitude. You just kind of have to sit back and say, wow, I did that. Literally, I did that.
Is
And so, like I said, every post on the female academic, there's some sass in there. Look, I have some curse words on there, and sometimes I get follows from it, and sometimes, people unfollow it. But that's me. I
yeah.
can't not have that and expect like it's not my true self. I curse in general and I curse on the page. Like I said, it would not be me if I didn't do that.
And I love what you shared in regards to the fact of, being authentically you and seeing what it looked like in regards to sharing and seeing how the world responded, right? And the beauty of that. One of the things that I hope with our audience as they're listening to this podcast is really being able to listen to that inner voice that might be saying to them, hey, why don't you create this?
Mhm.
Or why don't you put this out there in terms of, your purpose or or not being afraid, so to speak,
Right.
in regards to pursuing levels of meaningful work. And because meaningful work can be, and what you're hearing now with Professor Tira Murray is that, she's a full-time, professor, at a university, and yet she's building momentum. She's continually building this amazing community with really a project that she is passionate about and really passionate about serving others, which is another dynamic, because service to others is also a part of meaningful work, in terms of meeting the needs of humanity and really making a difference. And we hear it as it relates to Professor Murray's comments and what she's sharing in regards to her journey. So, Professor Murray, and it's funny because Tira and I are such great friends. I want to go between calling her Professor Murray and Professor Tira and just, phenomenal woman. There's so many things I want to go about calling her. But as you can hear is the level of love and respect. But I can't wait till she shares this with us. How do you feel about this in your work? Service to others, really making a difference and meeting the needs of humanity.
You know, maybe this just goes back to just me as a child with service, being a former Girl Scout and applying service there. And then later into my collegiate career, where, service was a part of my sorority. We provided service every day. And I think that sometimes we take service for granted, and it's like, oh, okay, it's just something I'm doing, or it's just something I'm supposed to receive. Like, I'm supposed to receive a compliment if you know what I'm saying, if someone finds you attractive, I'm supposed to do this.
Mhm.
Instead of service being of just straight up giving from the heart. And I've seen what giving from the heart does while I was Girl Scout, and also while I was in my sorority, truly giving from the heart without expecting anything in return. Um, I get that when I do the videos and where some women will either comment or will message me and say, thank you. I needed to watch that. I needed to watch it. In fact, I want to say it was like a month ago, one of the academics that I interviewed, she had just watched a prior video and she was just like, I just need a minute if you don't mind. I said, sure, take your time. And she said, I just need a minute just to take in everything I just learned from the previous video because I don't know how much I need it in the future, but I needed it right now. And I was like, wow, you know, um, we were talking about, if I'm not mistaken, feeling seen
Mhm.
and being a token in a program. Token meaning one person of a particular background or ethnicity. And she needed a minute to collect herself from a talk that was talking about mental health. So I said, wow, that's the meaning of giving without even thinking of anything in return. Um, excuse me. Sometimes people want a return investment. Oh, I'm going to post this video. I expect, no, just do it without even thinking you're going to receive anything. That's normally what happens, when you are trying to receive anything. If you're forcing something, like forcing service, then it's not going to come back in a good return investment for you, honestly. In my return investment, even though it might be followers, it might be likes, it might be comments, my return investment is people coming back and watching the videos, which majority of the time, because I've learned actually, um, my community is literally worldwide. There was a doctor in Africa who I'm geared up to interview next month. There is a researcher in London who we're having a session next week. There's a few girls that are in Canada that are very much on my page and very active. I have a few I call them page buddies. They're kind of similar, but for Latinx communities in Mexico. So that's really my return investment, is building these relationships and watching what I do and seeing how it transforms people.
I love that in terms of sharing from the heart
Mhm.
and see what transforms people. So I'm curious, for someone out there who's listening and saying, okay, I'm going to listen to that inner voice. I'm going to create this meaningful project that I have been thinking about creating. How do you go about balancing your work? Because remember, you're also working for a university, right? And
Mhm.
your work with the female academic community. How do you do that balancing act, so to speak? How does that work for you?
Every day is a different day. Some people say, well, you need to create content a month and ahead and blah, 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 blah. You got to do what's best for you. I've learned that in the end, you've got to do what's best for you.
Yes.
Sometimes, I can plan a whole week of content because I'm in the groove, and I'm like, oh, something just lit a fire underneath me and I'm working. And sometimes I'm like, wow, it's hard for me. So I need to take post, day by day by day. And sometimes I've learned that when I do posting day by day, the content actually comes out better, truthfully. So I've learned both ways. But I'll be very honest with you and say, learning how to do all of this, it comes in strides. Some people pick it up, they learn after about a week what works for them, and some people need months to kind of get it together. I mean, honestly, if I showed you my calendar, you'd be like, so what's really happening? Like if someone really looked at my calendar right now, they'd say, so you're doing what tomorrow? How are you doing all that? Trust me. Sometimes I say, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but it's gonna get done. You
And
have to commit to yourself.
yeah, very
You
true.
have to commit to yourself. I think too, to be very honest with you, this work from home situation, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about either why I'm ahead in certain aspects and why I'm behind in others because I had more alone time to figure it out. It taught me, okay, you're working and doing how much grading in one day? No. You're doing how much for one class in one day? No. I've learned that I can only work on two things. So, for example, I'll set up assignments for two classes on one day and for half the day, and then the other half of the day I'll focus on female academic. Next day I'll only work on one class and do grading. I kind of alternate. Khloe Kardashian, she said a really good quote right when she started training and getting into her revenge body mode. And she said, sometimes you just have to switch it up. She said, I can't be on the treadmill and expect the same results when I start getting bored. She said when she started getting bored, that's when she actually noticed her weight was stagnant. She said, I need to do something that's making me excited. So that's when she started doing the different types of cardio, either jump roping, swimming, stairmaster. And I said, wow, I never thought of it like that. You have to do things and kind of give yourself this variety. So it's not like you're getting bored doing one task because that can lead to burnout. I've been burnt out with work before, and I will be so honest, I've been burnt out with a female academic before. And that's because like I hit a wall. I'm working on it too much. So you have to know how to step away. You have to know when to work on things and not when to work on things. And you also need to know that just because you don't start first thing in the morning doesn't mean you're behind. Work with what works for you.
I love that. Work with what works for you. And it's interesting because Marie Forleo is, I just admire Marie Forleo. Of course, she's also the creator of B School, and I actually went through B School last year. And she always would tell us there's no behind in B School. And I love that, saying in terms of that. Now, within our community, we talk about it as it relates to living your own timeline, right?
Mhm.
It's like, so when you're living your own timeline, you're valuing the journey of it all. And so I love what you shared in regards to that, in terms of, taking a step back if you need to, kind of switching things up. Love that you mentioned a Kardashian effect there. Uh, a Khloe Kardashian effect, right? In terms of switching it up a bit. And I love that in terms of really, right? Really listening, to yourself, which is so very important. So tell us this, because you mentioned how the pandemic has granted so many lessons for you, right, in terms of your workflow and how to cultivate it. What have you found in terms of what brings you joy? What is the one thing that you have found, especially during this period, because we're going through this global crisis together,
Yeah.
right? So, what have you found that has given you joy as it relates to your work?
So things that bring me joy. I won't be shy at all at telling you this. Two things that bring me joy easily. I mean, I can only probably do it. I could do one, maybe every other day. My doctor probably would have a fit, but probably every other day, and one I could do once a week, which is Trader Joe's and Starbucks. I recently just shared this um, on a wellness panel. And I literally said, I don't know how selfish this sounds, but treating myself to Starbucks is treating myself to my happiness. It gives me not just the energy, but I'm occupying what makes me happy and I'm producing work from it. Me going to Trader Joe's, I'm not going to lie to you. I get maybe like kind of like energized. I feel like I become the Hulk, like when he's transitioning into the Hulk when I go into Trader Joe's because I'm like, oh, I'm looking at the things that make me happy. And when I come home and I'm bringing flowers home, or if I get a plant, I'm like, wow, now I have a little piece of that I can look at while I'm doing work. And that really does make a difference in my personal life and in my work life. I promise you, sometimes I will be on a Zoom meeting and just sit there and say, wow, this plant is so beautiful, but I'm admiring it and it's giving me happiness and it's making me flow through the days a little bit easier. Um, but solely work, what makes me happy? Um, a couple of different things. I'll say that when I talk to my students and I know that we're having transparent moments, that makes me happy. Um, I'm normally very transparent with my students. I think going into the pandemic, I became even more transparent than normal. And this semester, I've been fully, they can see right through me, literally. They can see and they know what's going on. And, it makes me happy knowing that they know I'm human and that they understand that I'm only one person. I don't have 15 arms, I don't have 15 legs. I only got 10 fingers to type. So, I can't always respond to everybody immediately, but the fact that they have the patience, which I've gotten to the point to where in my emails, I thank them. I literally start the email with thanking them for their patience because I know sometimes it's like, why can't I get a hold of this person? Why can't I do this? And this is outside of just student professor situation. This is like real life. Sometimes it's like, why haven't I heard from this person in a week? Sometimes things happen.
Mhm.
It's so easy for us to want someone to give us a break, but we don't cut other people a break. It's so easy to say that. I mean, honestly, I can count on my hands, probably all 10 fingers, how many times I wanted someone to reply immediately, but I didn't do that in return, you know? So it's understanding too. That's what makes me happy is giving gratitude and cutting a break. Um, and lastly, the next thing I found that has kind of made me happy in this situation is learning my limits. I've learned how much I can take on as an instructor. When we first transitioned, I was teaching at two universities and I had, I know how crazy I sound saying this, I had over 250 students. And these were not repeat students. They were all 200 that I had to remember, had to respond to daily, that I was grading on Zoom probably 5 times a day. I learned I could take that on. I could do it in real life, but I could take that on also during a pandemic, which I'm very proud about because some people can only handle but so much, but I learned how much I can really handle. Plus, I was also in the midst of creating Professing Forward. So there was a lot going on when we first, you know, started working from home. So I really learned that I can't handle it all, but there's a lot I can do.
So I like that. You can't handle it all, right? Because it's okay
Hmm.
to do that, right? I think when we think of uh, our success or our achievements, right? We try to think. Some of us may think about all the things we can do. I love the fact that you shared that. Yeah, you can do things, but then it's okay not to do it all. It's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay that we might need to take a step back. It's okay to go to Trader Joe's and to enjoy the moment in terms of valuing Trader Joe's. It's okay to go to Starbucks. Of course, I know how okay that is because
right.
I have my Starbucks cup of coffee right here with me as I am conducting this interview with Professor Murray, and I will tell you that my greatest moments during my morning is the fact that I can wake up in the morning and my fiance will have my Starbucks waiting for me. He had woke he gets up a little bit earlier than I do, and he will go to Starbucks, get my favorite order, and I think look, he doesn't drink coffee, guys, but I think he's learning to love it because he came home the other day and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I was before he could even can order, they had made it because they saw me walk through the door. They just knew because they know him. Now he's
Yeah,
realizing the love of Starbucks because Starbucks to me is deeper than just a cup of coffee.
yeah,
Right. It's so I love that you shared that. I love that you shared that. So every time now a person appears on Courting Happiness, we did this with Dr. Katie Raher, which she shared in episode 19, really the value of education and the value of educator self-care, right? So I want to end it with this question with Professor Murray. So, courting happiness is about one's commitment with
Mm.
happiness. How are you courting happiness, and how are you committing to your well-being
I commit to my well-being.
besides going to Starbucks?
Besides going to Starbucks, it's an unhealthy habit that
Although
my
it's part of
doctor
mine.
refused to give up. Um, I commit to my well-being by checking in with myself every day. Some
Mhm.
may call it a come to Jesus moment. I've heard it referenced as that. When you just have a powwow with yourself and say, "Hey, we're not happy with what's going on," or "Hey, you're doing a really good job. Keep doing it." I check in with myself every day, and totally relatable. I saw the funniest meme the other day,
Uh-huh.
and it was somebody that was duplicated at a conference table. And I am a Gemini. It said when Geminis assemble, what did it say? It said when Geminis assemble and have a board meeting, just don't pay attention to them. And it had it to where it was in like the board meeting was inside of a picture of a brain
Uh-huh.
and like somebody talking. And I'm like, that's me. We have roundtable conversations. I say myself as we because Gemini's two personalities. I mean, we have board meeting conversations when we all agree and we say, I, nay, yes, that totally happens. So I check in with myself and I'm like, all right, board meeting, what's going on? Are we enjoying what's happening? Are we enjoying the process of this? How are we feeling today? If as a whole my body and my mind and my spirit say you need to lay down, that's well-being for me. If my mind, my body, my spirit say it's time for you to eat a little healthier today, we're not feeling that hot, it's time for us to eat a little healthier this week, I say all right, we all said I to eating healthier, let's go eat healthier. That is really my well-being, is checking in with myself, and not just physical well-being, but my mental well-being. If I notice something is not making me happy, I'm very in tune with myself. That's something I will say. Some people say, "Oh yeah, I know what I want." Mental, spiritual, and physical health, totally different aspects. I have a female intuition that is very strong, and sometimes when I wake up and I feel a certain way, the first thing I do is board meeting. What's going on? Why am I feeling like this? I check in with myself. And that's really how I practice my own personal well being. I always want to make sure I'm okay, because if I'm not okay, I can't get through the day. If I know that maybe I feel like I've got a cold coming on or something, my my body will tell me, and I'll say, "All right, work for about 2 hours, and the rest of the day, you're in the bed. No point in you being on your feet, just be in the bed." If I know that, I feel like my sinuses or anything's messing up, get some tea, work through it, not feel well, get in the bed. That's really well-being, is being in tune with who you are and yourself. Um, I, you said how do I court happiness every day?
Mhm. How do you commit to happiness? So I love what you shared in terms of you checking in.
Mhm.
So that is that so is the checking in your sole way of committing to your well-being?
Yeah, it's probably the number one thing that I not like, oh, I want to do it. No, I have to do it, because I've learned that if I don't check in with myself every day, I won't be well. I think some people, it's easy to say, oh, my arm's hurting a little bit, I'll just go about my day. No, what's really going on with your arm? Did you sleep on it weird? Were you typing too much? You know, think realistically. Were you doing too much work the day before? And maybe that could have caused it. Um, all of that stuff is important to me. Um, that how I court happiness, or I'm committing to courting happiness every day, is being aware of where I'm at in the space and the time I'm at. Or I'm sorry, not the time I'm at, but the time I'm in. Being aware of what's going on around me, knowing that I'm okay, mind, health, spiritually, I'm okay. That makes me happy. Knowing that I'm financially secure makes me happy. Knowing that I'm doing what I love every day makes me happy. Because I'll tell you, anyone that knows me knows that I am very dead set when I make a decision. And if I feel like there's something that is not right that's happening, I won't be happy. You've got to make things happen to make yourself happy. I think we take happiness as a luxury. Like it's like we've normalized suffering in a really weird way. Like, oh, well, you can take on that much work. It's not that much work. No, commit to being happy and not suffering. Commit to normalizing happiness instead of suffering.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for checking in with us today. And you're absolutely right in terms of normalizing happiness, right? Which is why I'm so happy that we have so many people growing in this community because it's really all about you. Professor Tira Murray, you are phenomenal. Thank you so much for being here today. I truly, truly treasured everything that you shared, and I am looking forward to seeing much more of all things you in terms of the vision and the brilliance behind the female academic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You can find Professor Murray's information on our website at drkortnialston.com. That's drkortnialston.com. You can also find her in our private Facebook community as well. Well, let's continue this conversation online. Join us on Instagram at Courting Happiness. Don't forget, that's courting with a K. Also, I hope you join our private group on Facebook. You can find us at Courting Happiness Podcast Community. Our private Facebook community is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Now, are you ready to spread happiness? We hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.